Welcome to the Week's Weekly podcast for companies and agency owners specializing in medical clinics, cannabis, and dental offices. Have you reached your peak and want more out of life and business? Learn what it takes to be a part of bigger projects with the potential for a more significant payoff through growth and acquisitions. Listen to the latest episode with your host, Ed Weeks Jr.
Hey everybody, Ed Weeks Jr. coming back to you again. Super excited for this episode, bringing on a guest who, honestly, I just met in the last couple of weeks, did his podcast with him, and I said, you know what? You need to be on mine. We hit it off pretty good. Everybody, let me introduce you to Josh Hoffman. Josh, how are you, my friend?
Good. Your intro, I naturally have a decent amount of energy, but you put more energy into your intro than I do, and now I'm thinking that I need to bring just as much excitement as you did. So
I love it. You know what? I'm excited to have you, man, because I think, A, you're going to bring in a lot of value to my audience, and B, I think we really hit it off on your podcast. So, I'm stoked. Why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we can just have some conversation around that.
Perfect. Speed me up if I'm going too slow on anything here, but I was a marketing major in college. Didn't really know where I was going to start or what I was going to do with it, but definitely learned that I was entrepreneurial in college. So I did think that marketing was actually a pretty good degree to go into entrepreneurship. I did a bunch of classes in entrepreneurship. After college, went to 2 different jobs and then eventually started my own company called Game Plan, which was essentially like Open Table for groups. Well, actually, no, that it started as a decision engine for like where to eat and drink. So your friends could put, their opinions together and it would pop out 5 results. And we pivoted a few times out of that and ended up as this Open Table for groups. Learned a lot of what's not to do, probably more than what to do. Eventually brought those lessons from Game Plan over to my next venture. So Game Plan ended because the pandemic. Obviously, no group bookings were happening during the pandemic. So we kind of put that on the back burner. I jumped into a new project and helped be the founder of something called Query Stacks, which was essentially reporting for Amazon sellers. So we identified that there was no good reporting software, especially something you just get a weekly email. And we built that and eventually got acquired by Moonshot Brands, which I loved. Was actually my first time working in like a big company like that. But I loved that it was actually taking me out of the sales world and into the M&A world, which to be honest, is just a lot easier. And it was the same exact skill set. It was the same, extroverted. Honestly, everything was the same, except the difference was like I was not actively trying to push something on you or sell something to you. It was much more both sides were looking for something beneficial. I didn't have to actively follow up 20 times and that kind of stuff. So that's so I wanted to I just that kind of got me into the M&A space. It wanted me to stay in the M&A space. Then some of our team from the due diligence team and the M&A team from Moonshot ended up leaving. And now we're starting our own project, trying to build software to essentially streamline the M&A process. So I think that's
I love it. And therein lies why Josh happens to be here today. M&A, something that sidebar a lot of our conversation because the podcast I was on was Masters in Marketing Agency, right? So we got to give a little shout out for your podcast, which I had an absolute blast doing, but it led us into this whole world of discussions around M&A, since a lot of what I focus on these days happens to be around that as well. Where are you? So as you're putting this team together now, what are you focused on? Like what space is, I believe, e-com, is that correct?
Yeah, first, thank you for mentioning the podcast.
Of course.
Definitely should have done that as well. Also host a podcast, Masters Marketing Agency, like you mentioned, where we interview marketing agency owners and founders, not really about the, specifics of marketing and marketing personas and all that kind of stuff, but more how the business started and everything. So yeah, thank you for saying that real quick. M&A, which space? Yeah, mainly I started obviously in Moonshot Brands, which it's called like an Amazon or e-commerce aggregator, where they acquire a bunch of e-commerce brands and then operate them. So it's essentially saying, hey, look, you did a great job. Let's see what this company can look like with more resources behind it and a bigger team and all things like that. So that was almost exclusively e-commerce. And however, literally talking with you, I realized how much similarity there was between marketing agencies in the M&A space and e-commerce. Starting with the valuations, I thought were not going to be anything close to the same. And I think you said it's around the same 2 to 4 times EBITDA as SDE, sales discretionary earnings. So, I'm sure there's a lot different. I'm sure margins look completely different. But I think it's obviously, at the end of the day, you're buying an asset, which is a company, which is going to have a lot of the similar metrics.
Yeah, and I think that one of the pluses just to push the whole marketing agency, and there's so many people out there. I'll be honest with you, I'm on Search Funder, and somebody tagged me in a post because the guy was looking to sell 3 agencies in a mini roll-up, which is like wheelhouse for me. And there was 4, I was the first commenter on it for information. Luckily, I connected with the guy on LinkedIn and have a call with him tomorrow, but there was like 30 something people behind me. Please send me info. Please, please, please. It was just crazy to see the interest in the agency M&A space. And I think the big difference is it's just really ends up being services, right? So overhead, having the need for working capital to buy inventory. Like I've looked at several, and I own an e-commerce company, and sometimes that can be a little overwhelming from the perspective of somebody who's not really a full-time e-commerce guy, right? So the agency world tends to have real great and recurring revenue, almost like mini SaaS, I call it. It just has a really nice model that you can step into and hopefully tweak and play to make it better. That's the goal.
Why I also think that it's a good industry for the M&A space is because I think that there's a lot of people. It's a low barrier to entry, right? Like I know talking with a whole bunch of marketing agency owners, a lot of times the way that they get the first customer is going through their network, almost exclusively. It's always going through their network. And that lower barrier entry, again, means a lot of people can get in the space, but you also see that a lot of people don't grow to that third level, right? Like they sit in the maybe $1 to $2 million revenue range, but it's very hard to get to the next tier and then even harder to get to the next tier. And I think that type of like ecosystem is really good for then roll-ups. So buying just like you said, buying 3 different agencies, and now I have 3 $2 million, or let's say that the acquiring business is $5+ million. Now I can acquire these 3 $2 million businesses, and look at now I'm over 10 million. I think I hope I did the quick math right there.
You did quick math pretty well. And that is spot on. Not everybody has that model, but you also have a lot of those smaller agencies that are pigeonholed themselves into one service, SEO, right?
Perfect.
Web design, web hosting, and then putting it all together really gives you that full service and also allows you to cross-pollinate the companies and increase revenue dramatically just by selling existing clients new services.
That's
and hopefully we're not giving away all the sauce here, but I mean, it's not that hard to figure out.
It's your sauce to give away. I'm here to give out all the sauce. So, and I guess you can just take it out if you say anything that should be. But yeah, I actually think that's even a better idea in the sense of, a lot of times people are starting with the one thing they know, whether it's SEO, whether it's influencer marketing, and maybe they didn't hire someone that has a specialty for the other things, and therefore either they can get acquired, or if they get big enough, they can start acquiring additional services. And something I kind of wrote as a note is now you're playing a different game. Now you're having more services. Now you can actually do outreach to different companies that might need a more holistic marketing agency. So I think it doesn't just grow your revenue, it doesn't just grow your employee count, but it actually grows the overall market that you can reach out to.
Yeah, amen. Spot on. And I think here a great example of this too. I think a lot of times, because I'm not huge, right? I'm not a huge agency, but as I look and I've gone down the path with lots of people, you can talk to business. I had a great conversation with a pure content play, and this will keep it very general. Pure, not breaking any NDAs here, but a pure content play that was just amazing at producing video, right? And it makes sense. Their background is definitely geared towards that. But they were dealing with monster size companies. Let's just let's just say like Ford and GM. Totally, none of them were in auto, but just monster level companies doing high level content for them. And that's it. So they still had a ton of capacity to utilize their team for smaller deals, they also had the ability to now, instead of just doing video content, to be able to talk in a merger situation, right, or a roll-up situation, they could talk to these companies about how do we use paid media, how do we do the PPC, how do we break this down and utilize this for Reels and YouTube and everything else that you can imagine. So much more that they could get their claws into these larger clients and be that full service agency, right? Because a lot of these clients have how many agencies? I don't know, 15? Like, it's crazy what they do. So there was an opportunity to just roll up in their vertical and just immensely put your claws into their clients even deeper.
I have an interesting question to that then. I don't know if you'll have an answer, but what do you think is like the max percentage of sales or revenue that you think should be coming from one company? Because you always hear about the horror stories of, big company X was 80% of my sales, then we lost them and my whole firm went down. So do you have like any thoughts on?
I do, because we run into this all the time. You
Yeah,
find, and my own agency before rebranding was very guilty of this, having client equating to almost 60% of our revenues. So yes, that is, I think you can't go above, and the safe threshold seems to be between 25 and 40%. This company wasn't just, they had 30 companies at that level. They had 10 million plus in revenue. They were big, and big for, an agency like ours looking to acquire them. But yeah, I think that is where you could be safe, because it gives enough diversity in all their other clients. Now, if it's one client who has one service that equates for that, especially not like that content play, if you can't add other services where you can immediately increase that revenue, you have to start saying, well, maybe this isn't the opportunity. Look, I use a lot of creative financing structures when I go out and look at buying a potential company. One of this situation where maybe it's a 60%, a client that is contributing to 60% of revenue, I may try to strike a deal where I'll do some kind of earn in, not an earn out, but an earn in, and see if I can actually utilize my agency strengths to go sell that client on additional services, see that happens, and then the acquisition has a lot more value.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you? Again, I'm trying to give away everything I do, and I'm doing
it. Do you think that there's such thing as offering too many services? And the analogy I guess I would say is, they always say that if you walk into a restaurant and the menu has everything under the sun, it usually means that the food is lower quality. Do you see the same thing in marketing, or not necessarily? Because like if we're adding, another marketing firm that has 5 other services, like they've already obviously been doing those. So it's not like, no, we're diluting our current services. We're actually just adding more resources and therefore can easily add more services. Is that the right question?
It is. So the answer to that is truly, it depends. If you're going out there and selling a whole suite of services and you have the capability to deliver on 2, then yes, you're doing a disservice to marketing in general, right? But if you've done a strategic roll up, or you have enough of team with the capacity that is in all those areas, then you can have a host of services that you offer for sure. I do think there's probably a point where you're pushing it. I see it with a lot of the new streaming. I don't have staff that handles that. I have clients that want it, and I'll bring in an outsourced partner and let my client know, right? A lot of people try to hide behind the muse of, we can do it all, but you can't. So it's okay to, be able to partner with somebody who's an expert in that space. My clients generally appreciate. I do that. Look, I'll be blunt. YouTube ads, not my thing, right? Our Google PPC, we have some of the most reliable people that are very good at what they do, and I trust them with many campaigns. When it comes to YouTube ads, I can go to an expert in that space. It costs a lot of money to use the guy, but I go to him because he's within my network and I trust him to be able to do a absolute amazing job.
I know you're in the process of possibly making acquisitions. I don't know if you have yet, but when buying an e-com asset, you kind of know exactly what you're getting, right? You know the literal inventory levels, you know the products, how many SKUs, all that kind of stuff. and you're buying the asset with very known parts to that asset.
Sure.
In the marketing world, it's not as specific, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? And the reason I'm asking this is because you actually discuss like contractors and freelancers and things like that. What does an acquisition look like in the marketing space with people like are you bringing on those contractors? Are you bringing on like 100% of the business as it's run, or does things get shuffled in the mix sometimes?
So, so you're not going to like this answer, but it's my podcast, so I can say whatever I want. So, I mean, in situations where I have been involved with broker-led discussions,
Ooh,
usually we're starting that conversation owner, right? And that's fine. We're not really having the ability to go beyond the owner to do real full due diligence, right? So we're almost taking a leap of faith. And I can tell you that in the time that I've been doing that, I've partnered and done other things, but I haven't taken a leap of faith in buying because a lot of times you don't like what you hear. So with that being said, it would be really nice to be able to go in and actually do the due diligence to understand the team, right? Because a lot of where I'm positioning what I want to do in my M&A in the digital world is it's almost acqui-hire, right? I think we might have talked about this on your podcast, but we're looking at this as building and growing more teams in, if it's SEO, if it's web design, if it's hosting, if it's a SaaS play, we're looking at the developer side of this. So we want to be able to buy teams as well. And if it's direct outreach, if I'm doing my own outreach and getting to an agency owner, they're generally more apt to let us have that discussion. Mostly because they probably want to stay, right? So where I'm trying to really get is not somebody exiting completely from their business. They've only taken their baby as far as they can take it, and they want to have a bigger vision and be involved with somebody who's going to implement things that have much more financial gain for them a couple of years down the road. So I'm focused there, and that really weeds out a lot of people from a lot of broker-led deals happen to miss the mark because people want out.
I feel like I'm turning all the questions on you, but I'm so interested.
I love it. It doesn't matter. I told you we were just going to have a conversation, and my audience will be used to this, so it's all good.
Do you think that you get more value in the actual services or the people then?
The people. Honestly, it's the people. It's truly the people, because if they're tenured and they've been developed the right way and they want to be part of something bigger as well, then we want to make all of those things happen. So it's definitely the people. They do a better job driving the results for the client. And that's, at the end of the day, my vision is all that matters, because there's just so many places that maybe don't have that as their main motivation. I'm not going to be negative on the market, but they don't really, ultimately their end game is, revenue. And it's usually bigger plays, right? They have shareholders to answer to. They have VC to answer to, private equity to answer to. Yeah, we don't want that scenario. We want to be big and avoid that game as long as we can. We have to exit at some point, but hopefully it's strategic and it makes a ton of sense.
Changing the subject because you mentioned brokers, and I think that's how you entered this.
I just like to dig you.
You're not going to like this question. Exactly. I am now in the broker space. I kind of briefly talked about it, but basically we're trying to build software actually to make the whole M&A process simpler and more streamlined. However, we're doing a lot of the process right now manually. So we have a few businesses that we're trying to sell. And I was already doing this on the buy side, but now I'm kind of doing it in the middle, the broker side. And we're obviously just trying to learn what's annoying about that middle space that, unfortunately is probably necessary, because a lot of what we're trying to do is we understand that especially small and medium-sized businesses, they just don't have the resources to even explore the idea of being acquired, because it's a full-time job just to reach out to everyone, just to get your financials ready and everything like that. So obviously that's where the broker space comes to play, but we're saying, hey, look, the broker doesn't even need to be a person. And if it's not a person, then you're saving time. And now these small to medium-sized businesses can actually get their financials ready and then just put their business on the market just for shits and gigs and say, would anyone actually be interested in this? Sure. And then at what price would they? Okay, so that was just a little bit more about what we're doing. But the question, I guess, is, what the hell do you not like about brokers? Properly, by the way.
So this is all it is, right? So you just described the exact scenario before you said getting their financials in order, because that's not a lot of businesses, right? They'll have P&Ls, they'll have the craziest ad backs you've ever seen in your life trying to make their SDE look better, when in reality, if we're wanting to take the entire team, how can we add back all these salaries? You still need them to execute on the vision, right? So uh, I just wish more brokers understood creative ways to get deals done, financing wise, right? That's it. That's my biggest. I will sign an NDA. If you're asking me for a financial background on myself, it'll never happen. I don't even know if I like your deal yet, let alone that I'm going to disclose to you what my net worth is. Like it's so irrelevant, because the truth is my business net worth is a lot more than my personal, and that's purposefully, right? So I can give you my personal net worth all day and be like, what is this crap? If you look at the business side, it's completely different. That literally, that sums it up. Here's the other thing that's frustrating, right? Forget about if you're in a hot market. If you're in HVAC world, or you're in, home services, which actually is a hot market, so that's a bad example. If you're in an offshoot mom and pop business, the chances of you actually being able to sell your business are almost nil. It's very, very difficult. But if you are open to the creative financing side, which is basically saying, you know what, I believe in my business enough that I'll hold 65, 70% of this business in a note that you just pay me, right? It's an annuity. You're going to pay less in taxes. I'm not a tax advisor, but that's a fact. The reality is it can be worked and structured really well, which shows the buyer that you as the seller have a lot of confidence in the business you've built. Instead of saying to me, hey, Ed, my business is worth 15 million bucks when it's making $1 million, so it's not. The reality is we come to an agreement on a price, and then, you know what? You might have in the marketing space, a great example, you might have a bunch of month-to-month business. Who's to say that you are acquired and all that's the excuse all your clients need to leave? So in a month, somebody buys you cash, they're left holding the bag with no clients and no revenue. And I believe me, those not to that extreme, but those scenarios happen. A lot of times in the smaller space too, you have somebody who is the face. Very guilty of this in my previously named agency that I only rebranded to brand differently without my name on it. Essentially, it's just a matter of understanding that maybe your business isn't worth what it's worth, and if you're willing to actually still have skin in the game, which means you're confident in your business, we can do seller financing. Deals can get done all day. We always say one thing when I talk: your value, my terms. You can get what you want, just go with my terms.
I always tell people that not like just the ability to say no, but like the true ability to say no to a deal is the greatest negotiating strength that you can ever have.
Sure.
So I forget where I was tying that in with what you said, but
if you just go on that point, you and I know if you go and move something to private equity or another, your chances are you're going to be working for a younger MBA who's going to tell you what to do, right? That's the reality of the game. If you're going into a model that I believe I've created, you're aligning your interests in a bigger play to be worth more, to work for somebody who's been in the agency space, right? So if you can be creative and capital can be preserved for getting all of our numbers in order, being exit ready, which very few people are, then we can give our deal to Josh, and Josh can go get us the right structure to exit.
I'll add this to, and this is probably the number one thing that I've said to like prospective sellers is, and again, this is ecom, but I think it would probably be in the marketing space as well.
For sure.
Is that there's really two ways to run your business, especially when you're thinking about being acquired. It's like growth mode or acquisition mode. And they're two completely different ways of running the business. Growth mode is reinvesting profits back into the business and, not really worrying about bottom line. It's more about top line, just getting revenue in the door so that the whole business grows. And then you're able to hire more people, but that's obviously lowering your bottom line also. So all that kind of stuff. And that's growing the business. But there's also selling the business, which is completely different. Flip the P&L over. It's all about the bottom line. And most of the time, people are putting valuations or multiples on either the bottom line or a few lines up, being EBITDA, SDE, that kind of stuff. I had a question. No, I was just I guess I was just kind of saying things that I've noticed in that space. So a lot of times what happens, and I've talked to hundreds of people looking to sell their business, and more times than not, they start to sit right in the middle, which is like purgatory and worst of both worlds. So you're like kind of putting some profits into the business, but you're also trying to improve that bottom line. And now you're looking at these potential buyers who are like, your SDE is too low, and now you just hurt the growth of the business, or vice versa, right? Like you're really truly focused on growing the business, but you do kind of want to see what potential buyers are going to say, and then you start to increase that bottom line, and now you're not growing the business. So I find that so many people get stuck in there because they do just want to put their toe in the water, I guess, on one of the sides. And maybe like a toe in the water is good, but to start to move operations of your business just to put a toe in the water, I don't think that's good.
Look, you're literally, even though I know your e-commerce thought is there, it happens all the time in the agency world. And you're almost, which I appreciate greatly, I'm sitting here and smirking, you're almost positioning it exactly why I want to do what I want to do, because I want the businesses that are around us to continue to grow, but I also want to make us all exit ready. So let somebody handle that. That's here. There you go. That's exactly what we want. Myself, my team. That's what we want to do, and we want really darn good people making sure the engines are still firing. And that's what's missed. I have an agency right now. Again, I'm not getting in any NDAs because I'm not going to name them. Not going to tell you what they do. But their literal SDE has gone straight down because they have been listed. They just got out of their listing, so it was almost a full year, and their SDE went straight down. And now it's like, oh my Lord, what would you buy me for now? And I'm like, what'd you do last month? Okay, let's multiply everything you've told me. Let's take that valuation, which was high in the beginning, and we'll multiply that by your last month's SDE. And the guy's like, what? I'm like, because that's what you're going to do over the next year, unless I come in and really drive this. And that's a different conversation. And again, I love the guy's a good guy. He founded it. He's entrepreneurial, but he got just taken down that road and let his business go. There's a scenario where I want to do an earn out with him to be able to say, hey, look, we can get this business back. I'll bring in the strengths of my team, and you're going to benefit from that. Right now, you're in a really bad spot. It's kind of like let it go or team with somebody who can bring it back.
Yeah, especially to the first part of what you're saying. That is totally what we're trying to do with this new company. We're kind of under the radar right now, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say the name or anything.
New company. Google it.
New co.
We make widgets.
We are really, yes, exactly. We are really giving you guys, whether it's you or the other person, just the tools to prep all that stuff and to learn through financials what's going right and what's wrong. Again, without having to sacrifice the bottom line, more importantly, without having to sacrifice the time. Because again, the reason why brokers usually get involved is because it's a full-time job just to prep and sell the company, which again, therefore is taking the owner's time away from the business. So,
and again, I think the clarity statement that I want to, and we've been on almost 30 minutes. So
really?
Yeah. Wow. See what happens when you just talk, my friend? It's amazing. Business M&A people have nothing against brokers. The majority. There's some that I know that are just off the charts. The reality is in any relationship is just understanding where both bring to the table. The problem is right now, everybody wants to buy a business. A lot of people have no money to do it. That's not, and then when you're pigeonholed that way, it really reflects badly when you're trying to have a bigger vision and put together something greater. People inside of the marketing world, agencies not to be named, but that just do deals, they're really open to having conversations with myself on a lot of their deals. Does it always fit? No, but they understand the vision, and they understand if they have an owner that actually doesn't really want to let go of its baby, his or her baby, but wants to be part of something bigger, they know who to come talk to. There's a few in their network that they can talk to, and it leads to great conversations. Then it's just negotiation, right? That's why I'll do an update of one of these and bring you back and say, I've done all these deals. just in so many stages of late discussions to try to get these things done. But the reality is this, what you're talking about to me is next level brokering. And that's what's needed. There's a big hole in the market. So forget your name. The reality is your new co that makes widgets is making a really good widget that's going to definitely have impact in this M&A space. So first things, I appreciate your time, my friend. Second thing is there anything else you want to add before I just say end episode?
Yeah, I guess to do a little pitching of myself and what we're trying to do right now. Obviously, if anyone's looking to either acquire or sell their company, would love an introduction or would reach out to me on LinkedIn, Josh Hoffman. I guess probably type in Moonshot, my old job. I didn't put the new one up now, so that's how you'll probably find me. But happy to just have a conversation, see if it makes sense to sell right now, see what you have to do to sell, prep your financials now. So in 2 years from now, you have clean financials. So even if it's not looking to sell now, even if you're looking to sell in 1, 2, 3 years, even more, it just always makes sense. It's just going to be more of a headache to fix your financials later than it would be now and just kind of keeping it clean until then. So that would be my last thing. Yeah, I really appreciate
Any focus though? Any focus in there? I mean, industry wise?
So we are starting e-commerce because that's where we came from.
Sure.
But the goal of the platform is truly to just make all of M&A easier and take out the steps and systems that just take too much time and are manual, and anything that's manual is going to create, human errors and things like that. And that's inevitable. So yeah, really, truly any industry is what we're looking for because that's our end goal.
Perfect.
Well, thank you. Yes, this 30 minutes went so fast, which is obviously a great sign. I could not believe when you said that. I had the time and I had my face from this. So, man, great conversation. Would love to do this again.
Absolutely, we will. The last thing I'll say is, since everybody doesn't know when we're recording this, but we'll just say, good luck to your Eagles this weekend.
Much appreciated. I as you know, live and breathe the Eagles, the Philadelphia Eagles. So, yes, we are in the Thursday before the Super Bowl. So that is all I can think about right now.
Anyone in my network, don't hold it against them.
Exactly. Unless you're a Cowboys fan, then we never need to do business.
Absolutely. No argument there. All right, Josh, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Weeks Weekly Podcast with Ed Weeks Jr. If you like our show and want to know more, check out edweeksjr.com and please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.